Welcome to Axiom's Insights podcast, where we sit down with legal leaders to talk about all things strategy, innovation, and building the legal department of the future. My name's Sean Rafter. I lead Axiom's financial services business. That's a role I've been in for 5 years now, and I've been at Axiom for just shy of 10 years. And I'm joined today by my good friend Hiro, who is Managing Director and Deputy General Counsel at SMBC. Hiro, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What led you to SMBC, and what's had you stay there for 20 plus years?
Wow. I never thought I would stay anywhere for 20 years, let alone 23 plus now. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I was a problem solver. I liked dealing with people. And I went out of law school into a law firm and intentionally to a law firm that didn't support Japanese clients, and somehow ended up working for a Japanese company. Never thought I'd be here.
But here we are. And could you tell us a little bit about your role at SMBC? What does your team look like? How is it organized? What do you focus on personally?
Sure. Right now, our legal department under the General Counsel of America's division is about 110 attorneys, of which about 50 some are directly or indirectly under me. I cover various areas, including commercial banking as a whole, emerging issues like ESG, cyber, AI, which is why we're here today, and financial crime, fraud, OFAC sanctions, export control.
So safe to say you're not too busy on a day-to-day basis.
Some days more than others.
Some days more than others. Hiro, we're coming off what I think was an insightful, illuminating, fun discussion on the legal AI landscape. We just hosted approximately 35 in-house counsel across industries to discuss how they are thinking about identifying AI use cases, what the right tool for those use cases looks like, how they are evaluating different generative AI and legal AI solutions, and most importantly, how they're doing that responsibly and safely. Can you talk to me a little bit about key themes, key takeaways, like what stood out for you from that conversation? What was most interesting? What are you going to leave today and sort of think about and ruminate on?
Well, I think my biggest takeaway from this morning was that I'm not alone. For the context, I think we've been talking about how management and corporations across the world are now faced with the requirement or pressure to adopt AI quickly. And I feel that as lawyers, sometimes that puts us in a bind as being risk managers, but also professional rules and ethics of serving the client's interests and asking the right questions. Glad to hear I'm not alone. I want to adopt responsible and ethical use of AI for attorneys in the legal department. Challenging to find the right way to do so, and yep. I think a lot of people are struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. That was obvious during the discussion, and I think that challenge is compounded operating in a heavily regulated industry like financial services, and within the contours of a large global investment bank. Was there anything that surprised you today, or aside from realizing that most other clients in the room were pretty close to where you were at, was there anything that surprised you, or you're going to go away and really think about that more detail?
I think demonstrating adoption and improved efficiency, conversations about if law firms are using it, how do we reflect that on legal fees? Have clients, ourselves and others, seen decrease in invoicing as a result of law firm adoption of AI? And I think the answer is no. Broadly speaking, is going to be a continuing challenge. I think asking the right questions about the configuration and adoption of legal AI tech, well, are law firms and service providers like Axiom better suited for economies of scale rather than individual institutions that have limited use and limited budget to test and adopt and implement technology? Um, I think that those were big questions that were discussed.
Yep. And I don't, for the benefit of the audience, I don't think we really came to a clear answer on ROI measurement and an easy solution to address ROI.
Yeah, there is no answer right now, I think. But at the same time, if you're not trying, then you're essentially writing yourself off the book.
Yeah.
Whether from the cost and efficiency or political pressures that you have from in the business. There was also a conversation about legal use of AI and corporate use of AI and definitions between generative AI as intelligence and judgment and decision-making products and algorithms and automation and time saving. And I think most of the people in the room were talking about time saving and automation use of AI technology, which I personally think is often not really generative AI.
Yep. And what is generative AI in your view? Is the segmentation? This is a tool that is powered by an LLM versus, hey, this is a software and technology that has existed pre the advent of ChatGPT and Copilot, et cetera, and they're bolting on certain tools or certain functionality to that technology, but it's not a generative AI native platform. Or is it something different?
I think true generative AI use for lawyers, as far as I've heard or read, haven't been successful, meaning legal research, document brief and arguments, or contract drafting from scratch. I think judgment and decision-making process is not there for AI agents. That, or at least if they are, lawyers haven't been able to validate, trust, and use them as if they were professional tools or in replacement of attorneys. I think that would be touching on the question of unlawful practice of law. I think the automation. I think automation, comparative analysis, summarizing, things like that. I think are how people are using generative AI tools in the legal department, and that goes to the question: is it just an extension of existing technology, or is it actually leveraging generative AI?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Totally. No, and look, sometimes there's a bit of gray area, and it's hard to figure that out. And as a legal team or legal leader whose primary job, among other things, is to manage risk, you have to tread carefully. And I think that sentiment came through in the room today. At the end of the day, Axiom is a lawyer-centric, a people-centric business that is enabled by process and increasingly enabled by technology, but lawyer in the loop with respect to generative AI, legal AI deployments is really important for us, and I think equally, if not more important for you based on the feedback and discussion that we had earlier. If we think about the people side for a moment and put technology aside for a moment, how do you think about building, managing, developing your legal team and architecting the future legal department at SMBC?
I think that question goes to two sides of the AI use that we've talked about. One is the training. AI tools should amplify lawyers, amplify the human element, not replace them. And we always question our law firms and law partners about how are they ensuring succession and future training of the junior staff. I think that's an important part of how do law firms adopt AI, legal departments adopt AI. It can't be short-sighted.
Yeah.
In terms of the proper skill set, I think lawyers are required. We're required to be proficient in the tools we use to provide legal service, and AI is no exception. So I think AI skilling, the ability to use the AI tools in a way that's responsible and professional, is just as important as the tools we implement. And in the future, the next generation of attorneys are going to be required to have both. There's the question of how are they acquiring the legal skills if they're relying too much on AI, but also how are attorneys proficient in using AI in addition to the AI
Yeah.
legal skills.
And how do you think that changes law school curriculum and how not only junior lawyers at firms or in-house departments are trained, but even before they get there?
I'm worried. Law firms, law schools, colleges, not even lawyers. I think generally in the world, I think people are worried and should be worried about short-sightedness and adoption of AI to the detriment of training future talent. I think um, consumers of legal services, we should be mindful of not demanding efficiency over the long-term good for both for the industry, but also for our clients um, and future lawyers as well. I think skills can only be gained by judgment, and skills can be gained by doing the work. And once you learn the work, you can automate it and save time and efficiently. But if you start with using the tools that are designed for saving time, if you know the rules, then I'm not sure they're learning the right tools.
To your point just now, lawyers need to be trained and understand how to do the substantive legal work, but there are tools that can help them circumvent that to a sense. Like how do you balance particularly law firm lawyers, early career law firm associates needing to be trained and build that substantive expertise and fluency, but the general unwillingness or displeasure of in-house clients to necessarily pay for that. But like, what do you think the solution is there?
I'm going to sound a little hypocritical because we don't like to pay for training of junior attorneys in a law firm. We pay exorbitant amounts for senior partners and the quality of the work product. We expect the law firms to train the junior associates. I think providing opportunities for advancement, development of junior staff is the responsibility of the managing committee of the law firm.
Yep.
That said, I think we want to foster that. We want to foster good conduct by our partner firms, not just give us the bottom dollar, cheapest solution. We want to put our money where our mouth is. We want to build a relationship with our legal service providers who understand where we're coming from, want to do the right thing, both in terms of providing us quality, but also as a social, corporate citizen, social citizen, and as attorneys, I think professional development of junior staff, supervision of junior staff is an important part of that. We are asking law firms whether or not they're using AI tools for our matters or generally. We're taking the position that if a law firm is using AI on our matters without our consent, that's not approved. I'd like to verify our team to have the opportunity to validate the technology, the settings, the configurations, the ways, policies, and use cases before we say yes. I think there are safe and responsible ways to use AI tools for lawyers and law firms. But I don't want it to be a one size fits all. You can use ChatGPT and we don't worry about it. So we do have challenges in that regard. We ask the firms, and some firms say we assume that you've given us consent if you haven't told us otherwise. Whereas some firms come to us and ask the right questions. I think it's a professional obligation of the law firms to ensure client confidentiality and I hope they're asking the right questions, and I want them to show it.
Most of our clients are in their 2026 budget strategy planning process. And we just spent 2 hours together with a room of in-house legal leaders on legal AI, legal technology, generative AI. We also read a survey pretty recently that feedback or data point was that approximately 76% of in-house departments are being charged or tasked or mandated to drive efficiency, find use cases for not necessarily legal AI, but Gen AI and or legal tech. Doesn't have to be Gen AI, but they're being tasked or charged or mandated to do that, but they haven't gotten any dedicated funding to do so. Interested for you and SMBC broadly, like has the budget or funding balance or picture changed at all? Or do you think the allocation to in-house FTE resource, law firm, technology, whether AI or otherwise, do you think that balance or that pie chart looks the same?
I don't think I'm allowed to talk about specifics, but I can say that, like any other major corporation, the bottom line and cost efficiency, ROE on resources, whether it's human capital or technology, is an important question that's always on the top of every senior manager's priority, top of the priority list.
Yep.
In terms of legal department, I think talent resources and technology resources are fortunately two different buckets for the moment.
Yep.
I think we need to address those questions, but I don't think we are at a point where we are taking resources from human capital away and putting them in technology. In fact, our organization is very technology forward in terms of investment. So I think that's a easier question for us than some other organizations.
Yep. Makes sense. And I think consistent with what we heard in the room and consistent with what I hear from most of our clients, right? It's not as though, at least in financial services, headcount, budget, planning, et cetera, is being slashed to replace it with technology. They're just looking for smarter, better, more efficient ways to supercharge the work that their in-house lawyers are doing in terms of legal technology deployment.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we said earlier was, AI tools should amplify the person, the human talent, and not replace it. As a lawyer, I think that's easier to demonstrate and require the judgment and the skill of being a lawyer, providing legal service, the advice and counsel that we provide to our client is, I don't think AI tools are anywhere near that. No, reviewing documents, summarizing, comparing, redlining, these things, yeah, I think are not really generative work.
Yep.
I do struggle with the information security and data privacy part of what confidential information can we put into a platform, even approved by the organization. How do we get comfortable that the service provider has ensured that the information is not leaking matter to matter, let alone outside of the organization to another client of theirs?
Building off of the themes that we discussed in the macro environment, what you're planning on, we've worked together for a number of years, and you've been a great Axiom client ambassador. Have embraced alternative legal service provider, embraced the flexible legal talent model, if you want to call it that, to support the growth of the organization. And you've used a number of different Axiom lawyers, different ways. Can you talk about like what that strategy, thought process, evaluation process looks like, and how you get to a point where the old way of doing things was, do I have the capacity or expertise in-house, or do I need to send to a law firm? In a sense, we exist as a third option. How do you decide it's the right time to potentially use an Axiom lawyer or an Axiom service delivery model?
I think this is a great tie-in to the AI question. I really appreciate our relationship and our partnership over the years. Uh, Individually, Sean, you, and but Axiom and SMBC. I think the cost bottom line and headcount restrictions as the organization has grown require us to be able to pivot, and bringing in talent for project-based growth or business growth to match the growth when we don't have the department headcount to keep up is a essential way in which we've been able to leverage the talent you've had. The question of why Axiom or other competent trained attorneys to come in to step in and do the work, hit the ground running, rather than hiring someone and training them up for a role. I think that's similar to the question of AI adoption for lawyers. Sure, that we need someone who can do the work, who is efficient, and AI makes them more efficient, makes them better. Great. No, we don't have the ability to train the attorneys on the basics of lawyering in an in-house department. So we rely on law firms and other parties to train lawyers, and we bring in lawyers who are competent, experts, subject matter experts in a specific role or can fill a need. And I think, if those lawyers are increasingly in the future, as AI becomes important, lawyers who have AI skills are going to be more and more important.
Yep.
We talked about earlier law firms relying on AI for cost efficiency and reduction of billables for them on reduction of bottom line. We question whether or not they're training their future associates. Same problem. If they're not training their future associates, we don't have a competent lawyers to rely on.
Historically, you needed to be trained as a lawyer to exist and function for the most part in an in-house legal department, save for certain non-legal professionals that have always existed in in-house legal departments. But I guess where I'm going is, do you see more technologists, engineers, operations professionals making up a bigger piece of the pie in the future? And if so, what does that time horizon look like?
I don't know. 5-year timeline seems fast and short at the same time. I think AI is going to change the world in the 5-year timeline. I'm not sure it's going to change the lawyering profession that fast. I think people who are capable and aware what the limitations are and what it is that we're doing, what the tool is doing, what we're using, is going to be important. I think a lot of the people currently fall into two camps, whether they're worried that they're behind the curve of AI adoption or they feel like they're ahead of the curve and want to retain their edge.
So Hiro, you've talked about getting what I would describe as getting the organization comfortable with a lawyer-centric, lawyer-led model, or ensuring you're asking the question of, what are we doing? Should we be doing this? And certainly, should we or should we not consider using technology or an AI tool to do it? If we bring it back to that lawyer-centric model for a moment, and maybe tie it into the use of an alternative provider like an Axiom or an Axiom equivalent, a lot of what we struggle with, or Axiom clients struggle with, is they're used to essentially a two-pronged approach to legal services delivery. Either they have the expertise and capacity to handle that matter, that problem, that workflow in-house, or they need to go outside. And we exist as a third path, and we've partnered with you as a third path, and alternative service providers exist as a third path. How have you gotten yourself or the organization comfortable with the quality of service delivery from that third path or that alternative option?
it's an ongoing challenge, I think, to ensure we bring in qualified, competent, experienced talent to hit the ground running. I think the right tool, right person for the right job, right tool for the right job is always going to be a struggle. Um, I don't know that law firms are necessarily the right answer for everything. Hiring lawyers also has challenges, long-term cost, ROE, whatever the reason might be. Uh, you bring in someone, you're locked in, and they're not doing quite the kind of work that we thought they were going to do, or the work changes, or the person isn't quite who we thought they were. There's a risk in long-term hires as well. Um, Organizations' needs also change a lot, project-based, short-term growth, but also long-term growth of the organization where businesses are developing. I think it's important to be able to be flexible and the resourcing, whether it's lawyers nor technology. I think the ability to find the right fit for the right job, I think the alternative service providers like Axiom allowed for that flexibility. Um, but also leveraging on the fact that it's a legal service and not short-term staffing, which for internal organizations tend to have different ramifications and operational compliance rules.
Yep.
So
The framework that I like to apply is like right lawyer for right problem at right point in time. And to the extent there aren't operational administrative hurdles, don't, as a client, get consumed with, well, what is Axiom and how is it categorized? It's, do they have the competent lawyer, the expertise, the capacity to solve the problem at hand? And I think that's the same framework that you would apply in-house or with your law firm partners.
I think that's right. And I think in terms of cost, obviously, we like it to be cheaper, but it's not always the cheapest solution that's the right solution.
Yep.
No, we like to find the right tailored solution. So it works out. It's been great.
What is the best advice that you've received in your career to date, and who gave you that advice?
Wow. I think probably the best advice I've received, to be kind. We have to do our jobs well. We have to make tough decisions. Things don't always work out, but you can do it with kindness, and I think that's very important.
I couldn't agree more. And what is it? Kindness costs nothing. And
Sometimes it costs a lot, and you have to draw it and dig deep to get it. But no, absolutely, you're right.
exactly. And I found personally that you get more with honey than vinegar. And if you develop relationships and give kindness to your counterparts or contemporaries internally or externally, that you'll drive better outcomes. And that's a good reminder for us.
Yeah, and tying back to the AI part, I think people are worried about their jobs, and I think junior attorneys are as well. I suspect law students are worried. I mean, even outside the legal industry, I think people are worried about future of job security and what does it mean with AI Gen AI revolution. I think we have to be mindful of the human aspect of people worrying about being eliminated or jobs being eliminated. I think giving them the tools to skill themselves so that they are continuing to be quality service providers, quality attorneys and counsels that leverage an AI tool to become even better, but not be on the waning side of the equation. I think that's important as managers and as corporate citizens. And
Yep. And on the AI piece, like different use case for my team, but I tell my team all the time that it's not AI that will replace you in the short term. At least I don't personally believe that, but the individual who can figure out how to use these tools in a safe and responsible way. And my use case is not legal agreement, so a little different, but it's the individual that can use those tools efficiently and effectively to help supercharge the work that they're doing. Like that is who they could lose their job to potentially. And that is why I'm encouraging my team to safely and responsibly identify use cases. And I think most importantly, share those use cases across the organization so that we just become better and faster and hopefully happier in our jobs in the process.
That's great to hear. I think that's right. We have to become better lawyers and constantly improve, and learning how to adapt to the new technology era is going to be a challenge for some people more than others. I think the ability to internalize and change will be part of the skill. But I think you're right. I don't think people should be worried. Lawyers should be worried about losing their jobs anytime soon. You said 5 years. I don't think that's likely to happen for us.
Oh.
I think more important is my worry isn't whether or not I'm going to have less work to do. I think it's going to make more work, and we're going to be busier and busier.
Yep.
Like emails. People think we're always on the clock.
Exactly.
AI is just going to make the clients be more demanding and faster returns.
100%. I think lawyers are more necessary now than they've ever been.
In terms of the responsible and ethical use, when everybody in the world is like head down, cracking the whip, adopt AI, we have to become the voice of reason. We have to ask if they're asking the right question of should they do it, not is it possible, and also what's the right way to do it, and allowing the business to make informed choices so that they can get to the right place at the end of the day. It requires technological savvy now to make that informed decision.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Hiro, thank you sincerely for an excellent conversation here, an insightful conversation, for all of the time that you spent with all of the folks in the room earlier today at our AI breakfast. I really value it and appreciate you and appreciate our partnership.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Axiom Insights podcast. I hope that you continue to tune in, hear from folks like Hiro and other legal leaders on what they're doing and how they're approaching things like strategy, innovation, and building the legal department of the future.